All right, welcome to the channel. I'm Ryan Rutherford. This is Fantasy Footballaholics. We give you everything fantasy, rankings, mock drafts during the season, potential outbreaks, anything related with fantasy football. It's my first podcast. I'm trying to get this done before the start of the season. Trying a lot to work on this interface, not the greatest interface, but somewhere to start. And the name Footballaholics had some debate, but eventually we chose that name, and I think it's pretty suiting because if you're coming to watch mock drafts, you're probably somewhat of a fantasy footballaholic, so it'd be a good place to start. What we're doing here in this is kind of combining a mock draft and rankings, since don't really have time to do both, so we're going to do it together, which is kind of a good exercise because you can see what outcomes of all the types of teams if you just draft specifically in order, but filling your team roster. So we have 2 receivers, 2 running backs, quarterback, tight end, defense. We're not do kickers even, and then 1 flex spot. The caveat is we'll do 3 receivers, 3 running backs, so just so you can see how that would fill out if you wanted to go a little receiver heavy or running back heavy. So we'll end up having 3 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, quarterback, kicker, and defense. We're just going to do kickers and defenses at the end of the 3 running back, 3 receiver set. That way we're not going to draft 8 receivers and 6 running backs to fill out an entire roster. This is to see what your roster would be with 1 additional flex spot being a receiver or running back. And we'll go talk about ADP and then my rankings comparative. And I'm running back heavy, especially in the first few rounds. So you're going to see a lot of teams only having 1 or 2 receivers. It might play out where someone has 3 receivers, but more likely not. So the top 10 rankings are all going to be running backs, which might skew your draft a little bit because most drafts you're going to have 3, 4, 5 receivers go in the first round. Mine is only going to be 2. So some of these mid to low tier first round running backs you're going to be able to get in the second round. So if you can grab 2 of the running backs I consider top 10, that's what you want. And most of my mock drafts I am selecting 3 running backs to start out. Very rarely is there an exception unless it just goes running back heavy, like I think. Then I try to grab 2 running backs back-to-back at the end of the first. But usually that's not very often, and every time I do that, it doesn't work. So let's get in this, and I'll still chat about it as we go on. Just wanted to give you a heads up that I am running back heavy, so my rankings will be slightly favored towards running backs. Claim the first spot. Just makes it a little easier to run through the edge. And we will begin the draft. All right, so first pick, Ezekiel Elliott, if he wasn't holding out, would be my first pick. Bell cow, stays on the field every down. Similar to the same guy that I'm going to pick here. Saquon Barkley last year was tied in first in fantasy points. He had 12 games over 20 points. Very consistent in a bad offense. Easily the most athletic running back in fantasy football. Probably the most athletic player in the NFL. It's hard not to take him number 1 overall. If Elliott does come sign a contract before the start of your mock draft, mine's Tuesday, I would have a hard debate on Elliott or Barkley, but if you get them 1 or 2, then hey, either one of them is a great player. We're going to drop Elliott a little bit lower because we don't know yet. If he doesn't show up at all by your mock draft, second or third round is probably a good place to take him once you have 2 good running backs already. But then you're going really receiver light, which I think is okay because you can get decent receivers close to 1,000 yards in the end of the draft. Second pick, he was tied with Barkley in fantasy points last year. Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey. Only knock on Christian McCaffrey would be Cam Newton right now. Cam Newton has a shoulder injury. Cam Newton's never been accurate in the first place. The reason why this could be an issue is if Cam Newton can't throw differently, can't throw deep, and his new throwing motion doesn't work out for him, he's just going to be checked down in a lot, which is good for McCaffrey. But on the negative, teams are going to know that and crowd the box, and they're going to spy McCaffrey hard, maybe shift a linebacker over there, including a safety. They're just going to be double teaming that guy a lot because Cam Newton couldn't throw timing passes if his life depended on it in the first place. He's all about improvisation, but with no accuracy. Dumping the McCaffrey's worked well for him this last year, so teams will know that, and they won't worried about his deep ball. So that's all dependent on him. But even this, so he's still going to run the ball well. He's still going to catch a lot of passes. This might not be the yards per carry or yards per reception as it was last year, but still going to be a great player. You could argue Kamara over here over McCaffrey just because Kamara's situation hasn't changed much. But even then, his situation has changed a little bit because at the end of last year, Drew Brees' stats started falling off. But I don't think I'm too worried about that. Same thing with McCaffrey. He's athletic. He's a good player. He's going to make moves. And the offense is going to revolve around him. Number 4, this is where I'm taking Elliott right here. We're just going to assume he's back, put him a little bit lower in the lineup. It's hard for me to place it in the second round and make an accurate mock draft. So we'll just select him here, knowing his talent. This is just basically showing you that those 3 guys are the guys behind Elliott or by Elliott. So putting him at the end is kind of my designated spot right here based on what's going on. Like I said, if Elliott doesn't show up, any 3 of these guys will work. Safest is Kamara, then Barkley, then McCaffrey. Biggest upside by far is Barkley. But if Elliott's back, selecting him first over Barkley, this is the way I would go. Pick 5, Connor. Connor was 6th in running backs last year, fantasy football. He did miss a couple games. Other than that, he might have been, top 4, top 3. Connor stays in, catches passes, basically does everything Le'Veon Bell did, just not as explosive. But he is a smarter runner and a little bigger. Had him on my team last year. Very consistent. Gets you everything you need. Great pick. ADP has him 8-9. I've seen him go in the end of start of second rounds. I always seems like whenever I pick 5 to 12, I can get him any of those spots. Pretty much if I don't have a top 4 pick, Connor's my first target. If Connor does go, however, the next guy that I'm targeting is Le'Veon Bell. A lot of people worry about him taking a year off, going to a new team, line not being as good as Pittsburgh. All this is true, but I think they're going to just model the Pittsburgh Steelers way they used him. They're going to get him the ball passing and rushing, and Le'Veon Bell's athletic. He's not going to be able to do his wait it out, see a hole style like he did in Pittsburgh. I think he's going to have to attack a little bit more, which will be new to him, but everyone knows he's got skills and can make people miss. So he's going to get so much volume there, probably more volume than any of these guys up here. So I'm not scared taking Le'Veon Bell. His ADP is somewhere with Connor and David Johnson. They're all targeted 1.8-ish. So getting Le'Veon Bell here is a good pick. You're probably going to be able to get him, like I said, just like the other guys, around 8 or 9, because a lot of people are going to pick Hopkins or Devontae Adams ahead of these 2, which I'm always happy. Getting any of these guys in the end of the first, start of the second is amazing. All right, next is the next guy I just mentioned, David Johnson. David Johnson initially was my 4th to 5th selection. For some reason, I've got to see a lot of Arizona Cardinals on preseason, and the offense looks okay. David Johnson looks a little slow. So a couple years ago, David Johnson did have 2,000 all-purpose yard seasons. So he is a do-it-all super heavy workload, amazing athletic talent. Problem is, he looks a little slow right now. And then you compile that going into a air raid offense, he's going to get the volume that if he looks explosive again, he's going to have those type of seasons again, which used to put him in the first pick overall in the draft. Throwing him in here 7 behind Connor and Bell because he doesn't look explosive, but he's going to get so much work. There's no other running backs to compete with him in Arizona. Regardless if he doesn't look explosive or not, he's going to get swing passes, check downs. And if you watched preseason at all, Kyle Murray was checking down a lot. And the read option will be a thing there, so Kyle Murray will be very guarded by defenses, and David Johnson's going to get a lot of yardage up the middle. So he will get volume. Even if he doesn't look explosive, don't be afraid to take him. Maybe he's just getting the rust out of him in the preseason. Nick Chubb's my next pick. He's actually 7th in ADP, selecting here 8th overall. Most of my mock drafts and where I was ranking him earlier in the preseason was 2nd to 3rd round. I usually didn't take him because I just didn't watch the Cleveland Browns much last year, and he's kind of unknown. But the more research I did, the more I checked out Cleveland's offense. Cleveland's offense is kind of going to be spread, probably go 3 wides a lot. And they're going to try to spread the ball out. So Nick Chubb's going to have a lot of 6 to 7 in the box. And he's going to have favorable matchups to run the ball. So I think with his explosiveness, he should be able to get a lot of yards. It's going to be similar to Kamara, I believe. He's going to have high yards per catch, high yards per carry. And since they just shipped out their 3rd down back to Texans, there's no competition for 3rd downs. He's just going to stay in. He's going to be an all-down back like Elliott and those guys, and he's going to get volume. So this is where I'm selecting him. I've seemed to be able to get him a little later in the draft, so you might be able to give me your 2nd pick if you get one of these other guys first. So if that's the case, that's just what you want to do. I got 2 more running backs, 1st round. Mixon and Cook. You see Mixon's been dropping ADP. Mixon's 16th. This is 9th. Like I said, I'm not taking a receiver in the 1st round, so this puts him here. 16th would be 4th pick in the 2nd round. So getting him in the end of the 1st round is a good thing. And there's 6 to 8 receivers if you want to go running back receiver that you can select next. That will be one of the top tier receivers available at your next pick. So getting Mixon here is a really good play. If you get your receiver here and try to get Mixon there, he's probably going to be gone, and then you're going to be stuck being a tier 2 running back. So I would just select him in the 1st round. Only knock on Mixon, I believe he was 4th in rushing last year, still missed 2 games. So a little bit injury prone. He's been good since his rookie season. Bengals offense, though, right now, 2 offensive linemen got hurt, and A.J. Green's out for a few games, so that's why his ADP's dropped. Otherwise, he'd probably be in the middle of the 1st. Very good explosive back. We'll see how he does with the bad offensive line, but that's another story. But volume back, staying on the field. Gio's the only competition for him, but Gio's been looking worse and worse the last couple of years, so Mixon is a very good pass catcher as well, so he'll stay on the field quite a bit. Dalvin Cook looked explosive in the preseason, had an 80-yard run, looks fast, looks healthy. The reason he's 10th overall here is injury history. You kind of can't count on injury history. I mean, guys can go 1 year they're out all year, 1 year they're healthy all year. It's like A.J. Green. But if they go into the season healthy, you got to kind of give them the heads up, like, hey, you're going to stay healthy, or at least get 12 games for me. And if Dalvin Cook gets 12 games at what he can get at, that's worth it right here. You can get someone else to play a few games. His backup's actually really good, so some of these guys' injury history, you need to target their backup fairly high, 6th, 7th round, just to give yourself a little cushion for the possible injury outcome. 11th overall, we'll do these 2 receivers that everyone takes in the 1st round. My favorite here is Hopkins. Hopkins is more talented than Adams. Adams has a better quarterback, for his career. Hopkins has been playing carousel. Does have Deshaun Watson now, so if Deshaun Watson stays healthy and Hopkins stays healthy, I think Hopkins is a better pick. But that's the thing you got. Hopkins might get hurt getting targeted too much. Watson might get hurt again, and then you're back to who knows who they got there. I don't know. But even if Watson goes down, Hopkins will still be a top 10 receiver. But he doesn't have the touchdown upside Adams because Aaron Rodgers is all over Adams. But picking either of those guys, 11-12 is the way to go. I would argue the guy I'm selecting here, Julio Jones, is better than both. The reason I have Julio Jones third is because he does not get touchdowns, and he is not high as ADP as the other experts put him. I got to kind of figure experts' opinions because they are experts and I'm not. So I have Julio Jones as the third receiver here. If it was me, I would select him as my first receiver. But you have to have that debate. Julio Jones every year has 1,600 yards, 6 touchdowns. So his stats, if he could get more touchdowns, would be number 1 fantasy receiver in the NFL. Problem is, Matt Ryan doesn't throw him in the red zone for whatever reason. I do think that'll change eventually. Matt Ryan should get an earful telling people fantasy-wise, hey, throw to your guy in the red zone. He's big. He catches. He can get everything. And all that's true. It's just their offense, for some reason, doesn't target the receiver in the red zone. I do expect that to change a year, so maybe this is the year that changes and he gets 10 to 12 receiving receptions with 1,600 yards, and he's the number 1 fantasy receiver in the NFL. So targeting him, size, speed, everyone knows. Everybody watched the Patriots versus Falcons Super Bowl where Julio Jones dominated the Patriots, and nobody dominates the Patriots besides the Giants, which is weird. 3 more receivers in this category: Thomas, Beckham, and Hill. Michael Thomas, ever since his rookie season, has been dominant. Michael Thomas has 1,200 yards, 8 touchdown average first 3 seasons. Only negative on him, really. Drew Brees still have the arm strength. Drew Brees looked okay. End of the season started looking a little worse. They are going to rely more on the run. They got Latavius Murray, still have Kamara. A little worried about the Saints offense with Drew Brees kind of going down. Drew Brees hasn't had a 5,000-yard season for a few years, and it's getting no worry. His arm's just going downhill. Odell, a little more touchdown upside than Hill. Hill's touchdowns are usually dependent on trick plays in the red zone or bombs, which he does get a lot of. Odell's on a new team, but his route of choice is a slant. Kind of takes a little bit of timing for slants, but I mean, Odell's catch radius is pretty big. Baker can't be that inaccurate, and he should get a lot of volume. Landry, I like Landry a lot in the 6th, 7th round because I think Odell's going to get double teamed. So Landry and Njoku and Chubb should all have a lot of good potential in fantasy this year. And then Tyreek Hill. So there's your top 6 receivers. Any order doesn't really matter. Same thing with these running backs. After Elliott, Connor through Dalvin Cook, you could pick any one of them. I wouldn't argue you. Kind of Mixon and Cook is kind of a little tier lower than the other 4. But here, these receivers, it doesn't matter. You can pick anyone you want. Probably Michael Thomas has the least amount of athleticism out of these receivers, but his hands are exceptional. So, I mean, any of them is a good pick. After Tyreek Hill, we will go Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is a very interesting player right now. A degenerative knee. Winslow Jr. had that, was in Seattle, my team. Every week, is he going to go? Is he going to go? He's not practicing. Is he going to be able to play? He plays. Looks okay. Next week, can he go? Can he go? Can he go? No. I'm sure Todd Gurley is going to get a little better medical assistance than Winslow, but it's going to be week to week. When he plays, limited snaps. Got 2 running backs behind him now, both of which targetable in fantasy. I wouldn't take either one of them for a while, though. Daryl's looked not explosive at all, not patient runner. So Todd Gurley should be the primary back. Todd Gurley should be nursed all season. Don't expect Todd Gurley of the last couple of years, 80%, 70% of him. Still 70%, 80% Todd Gurley, still 1,000 yards and whatever touchdowns he can manage. So I like this pick. Second round is where I'm targeting him. I personally would only get him if I could get one of the top 4 running backs, maybe with Connor. Got to have a running back that you can really depend on if you're getting Gurley, because if you're going to get Gurley couldn't miss the entire season at any moment, end his career. So you better have a back already that you can depend on, and then you're going to have to be working all year to get your fantasy points. But all this said, if his knee's not that big an issue as they're saying, and he's a top running back, then you get the best player in the league last year, arguably, and you're going to be good. Devontae Freeman is my next pick. Freeman's ADP is a little bit lower than I select him. His 29. That's early start of the 3rd round. I go running back heavy, like I already said, so that's a little reason why he is, 20th selected here, 18, 19. Freeman was a top fantasy running back a few years back. Freeman had an injury this last year. I think he's had 2 years, a little bit rough. But before that, he was a fantasy stud. Now Coleman's out of there, just Devontae Freeman. And Devontae Freeman already was a good pass catcher, but now he is the man. And just like Dalvin Cook, he's going in the season healthy, so you got to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. He has the upside of being a top running back, just a little bit of injury history. This next guy, hey, finally a Seahawk. Probably the only one that anyone's drafting other than Tyler Lockett. Chris Carson. Chris Carson has been rising on ADP. His ADP now is in the last pick of the 2nd round. How my mock drafts have been working with Chris Carson, who I've been trying to snag every single draft, is I pick him in the 3rd round. This obviously shows I'm comfortable taking him in the 2nd round. But usually what happens is I'll get like Le'Veon Bell, Joe Mixon, and then it comes back to me in the 3rd round. I'm able to get Chris Carson. If all these guys are gone, 2nd round pick, Chris Carson. Chris Carson's known to be injury guy, but he only set out 2 years last year. Chris Carson was also 5th in rushing. He did have a knee scope. I wouldn't think too much of it. Knee scopes usually aren't that big of a deal, and in preseason he looks explosive. Pete Carroll's also said that he's going to catch more passes out of the backfield. So any of you guys that think Penny's going to take over, I would assume Carson getting a bigger load this year. He's going to basically envelop Mike Davis's backup position of last year. After Chris Carson, I got a couple of receivers that I would take here. Mike Evans and Juju. I'm more high on Mike Evans. He's done what he's done longer. Every year he's had 1,000 yards since he came in the league. Tampa Bay's got a new offensive coordinator. Sticking with Jameis Winston, they're going to throw the ball. Mike Evans is number 1 target. Mike Evans will get just what he gets always, which is 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He was 9th in fantasy last year, receivers. Juju, everyone knows how great of a year Juju had. He played number 2 receiver to Brown. Brown was not playing. He'd be number 1, played just as well. Now he's the only one there. Washington has looked explosive as number 2 maybe in Pittsburgh, but still Juju's going to have the number 1 corner constantly. Assuming his targets are going to go down a little bit just because of his coverages on him, but still going to be a good receiver. I have him as my 7th receiver overall, a little higher in ADP. A little skepticism in his athleticism going against number 1 corners, but I think he'll be fine as far as volume. After this, after Juju, we're going to go back to a slow of running backs after I select Kelsey. Kelsey's ADP is 19. Selecting him here at 20, 21, 22, 22. Was skepticism on the tight end Crave. I 100 mock drafts before this, and the first 95 of them never picked a tight end until 8th round, picking 10th best tight end, 9th best tight ends, and I liked it. I was happy with my team with 3 receivers, 3 running backs early. Wouldn't go quarterbacks even. And then I started going 3 running backs, best player available. Travis Kelce will not be there in the 4th, but in a couple drafts I have taken him in this turn pick on the 2nd to 3rd round, and still liked my team. Travis Kelce is just as good as Juju, just as good as Odell. You're getting a number 1 receiver at tight end, and you're going to dominate your position just like every expert says. So if you got 2 running backs and you can get him in this turn, I think it's an amazing pick. Obviously, my ranking show in the 2nd round, but like I said, I rate running backs higher than receivers. So Freeman, Carson, Gurley, especially Carson and Freeman, probably going to be able to get them end of the 2nd, maybe even the start of the 3rd. So then getting Kelce in the turn, 2 good running backs, do it. After this, I got a run of running backs. My order is going to start with Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram is not a very high ADP. Mark Ingram is shown here as the start of the 4th. I am taking him at the end of the 2nd. Mark Ingram, before Kamara was in St. Louis or New Orleans, was a 1,000-yard back, 10 touchdowns. Did that consistently. He is a good back, and he is going to a system that is going to run the ball as much as Seattle. Mark Ingram will be volume. He is not as explosive as Chris Carson, but he will get as much volume as Chris Carson. Mark Ingram has never had injury history. You're looking at a safe Connor-ish type player. I would take Mark Ingram all the time as my 3rd running back. Late 2nd round, he's going to be there in the 3rd. So as your flex position, Mark Ingram is a steal. Would I take him as my 2nd overall pick if all these guys are gone? Yes, but you're going to be able to get him in the 3rd, possibly the 4th round. He's a steal. He's not old. He's 30, 31. After him, Damian Williams. Damian Williams, ADP is 18. I'm taking him 24. This is high for me. I'm not on a Damian Williams bandwagon. He's been in the NFL for a while, hasn't done anything. Goes to Kansas City, where all running backs do good, and everyone thinks he's the next Kamara. He's like Kamara. He's fast, short, but he's not Kamara. Damian Williams could be displanted by Hyde or Damian at any time. Or not Damian, the other rookie they got. Can't think of his name right now. But as of now, catch passes, looks okay. He didn't play much in the preseason, which means he's going to be the starter. But I think it's going to be a running back trio there. But ADP has him high. I'm going to kind of roll with it. I don't target him. If he's there in the 3rd round and my guys aren't there, I would target him. But Kansas City backs always fare well, and he is a starter right now. Kerryon Johnson is another guy I'm drafting a little higher than his ADP. Kerryon Johnson has first 1,000-yard season. Theo Riddick was the 3rd down running back, and everyone knows Theo Riddick's gone. So Kerryon can catch the ball, and he should be an every down back now. So getting an every down back is a good thing. Just like Saquon, though, he's on a very good offense. So they could stack the box if he starts playing really well. And we all know Detroit, they don't run the ball. Maybe they're going to change their mind because they got a good back finally. And hopefully they do. But Kerryon is going to get volume and be in there. So very good selection. Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is another mystery. Green Bay's always been running around on their running backs. This thing does that if you don't scroll down. Green Bay's always been a carousel with running backs. So picking Aaron Jones is a little risky as your 3rd running back, but if he's your flex play, it's not too risky. Aaron Jones could end up being this super breakout running back. Aaron Jones played last year, and they just gave him a chance to play all game. Was a stud. Aaron Jones is talented, and we don't know if Green Bay is going to stick with him, but if they do, you have a really good player. A high ceiling with this guy. Floor could be low, though. Marlon Mack's another guy. Mack's kind of plummeting lately in ADP. Marlon Mack here is 41. So that's the 4th round. Still, he's the guy. Hines is their 3rd down back, so he will be out in a lot of 3rd downs. But not as many as you think, because Andrew Luck's gone. They might just decide to pound the ball with Marlon Mack. That's the reason I have him right here. Marlon Mack looked like a really good running back. Only knock would be comes out in 3rd downs, but Andrew Luck's gone. You don't know how that offense is going to perform. Leonard Fournette, next one. Leonard Fournette's had a bad ship, really horrible quarterback, bad offense. Yards per carry were bad. Everyone's like, he's not explosive. Yards per carry is low. I mean, he was drafted in the 1st round after his rookie year. And even then, his yards per carry were in the 3s. But if Nick Foles can get any semblance of a pass game, Leonard Fournette, I believe, will have a really big season. Have him here because history, not that great. But if you watch him in college, know what he can be. I think he has a big year. Next guy on my last running back in this tier is a guy that people are already jumping off ship is Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay was explosive his rookie season. 1,000 yards, pass catcher. Everybody thought he'd be the 3rd down back, and guy from Oregon, can't think of his name right now, was going to outplan him and be the every down back. Freeman. As of now, still Lindsay. Lindsay didn't play as much as Freeman in preseason, which means Lindsay's going to be the starter. Everyone expects Freeman to take a bigger chunk of carries this year. I really doubt it, because Phillip Lindsay looks like poor man's Daniel Tomlinson. And comparing anyone to little Daniel Tomlinson means you want him on your fantasy team. Getting Phillip Lindsay is your flex play. You're going to win a lot of games. And if you like receivers, get him as your second running back, I'm fine with that. He's going to get 1,000 yards all-purpose regardless. And I believe last year he was 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Guess a lot of experts think his touchdowns are going to drop and maybe his yards go down a little bit. I don't believe so. Now we got a couple of receivers. You can see him right here. Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is a stud. 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns. Average the last 2 seasons. ADP's about here. Adam Thielen's looked good in preseason. He's number 1 in Minnesota. A lot of people dropped him a little bit in ADP because Diggs had a good end of the year. But even if Diggs is better, they're still 1 and 2 there. They're both good receivers. Adam Thielen, more consistent, better player. After him, we got Antonio Brown. Best receiver in the NFL is if his head's screwed on straight. His head's not screwed on straight, so he's in the 10th best receiver, 12th best receiver. If he plays, and helmet issue seems to be sorted out, so he should be on the field. Hasn't played all preseason. He got no rapport with Derek Carr. But he's super talented. To not have him, it's a crime. It seems like I'm getting him a lot in the 4th round, so number 1 receiver, my 4th round pick. I'll take it. After him, we have another guy I reach for that I believe is extremely talented. Brandon Cooks. Everywhere he's went, from New Orleans to the Patriots and now to the Rams, on a team I still think has a horrible quarterback, but that's another story. Brandon Cooks had 1,000 yards every season with different quarterbacks. He's had averaged 8 touchdowns. I think he's averaged 1,100 maybe yards per season. He's an animal. He's the most explosive receiver of the Rams. Maybe gets targeted a little less than Kupp and Woods, but he will be touchdowns, bombs. He will get you big breakout weeks that will win your week. So he's a very high ceiling receiver. After that, I will throw in the guy that I'm hesitant to draft, but everyone has him early, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Do I think he will be the best quarterback this year? No. His ADP is actually 17. If I could get Patrick Mahomes in the 5th, 6th round, okay, I'm down for that, but he's not going to go. I've seen some mocks where he goes in the 4th. I actually selected him one time in the fourth. I went around the turn. I got Kelsey in the third and got him in the fourth just to see what my roster looked like. I didn't like it at all. Aaron Rodgers in the sixth, Deshaun Watson in the sixth, even Matt Ryan, way better picks. He's not going to do what he did last year. Fluke season. Yes, he's talented. Yes, he's in a good offense. He will put up good. My guess would be 4,540 touchdowns, which is still top tier receiver, quarterback, but you're missing out on your first receiver or your flex spot or your second running back. It's just not worth it. But got to go with ADP. Experts aren't idiots. He's the best quarterback as of now. So if you get him in the fourth round, could be a steal. Right after these guys, George Kittle, Zach Ertz. Like I said earlier, started the mock draft process. I wouldn't touch tight ends till later in the draft. I was happy with my team. But lately, I'm going 3 running backs. Best player available. I've got Kittle and Ertz a few times. Loved my team. So if you can get Kittle and Ertz in the 4th round, I think it's worth it. If you're happy with your 3 picks. If you got some question marks like Gurley, maybe get another running back or go 2 good receivers. But if you're happy with your running backs, say you got Christian McCaffrey, Mark Williams, and Chris Carson, hey, grab these tight ends. They are a step above the rest of the league. You will not be disappointed. Ertz has been dropping for some reason, which I don't understand. He's been consistently the top 2, top 3 tight ends in the league ever for a while now. I believe he's averaged 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns the last couple seasons. First seasons before that, 800, still had 4 or 5 touchdowns. I mean, even if he does 1,000 yards and a few touchdowns, he's still top tier tight end. After Zach Ertz and Kittle, I got this little asterisk pick, T.Y. Hilton. T.Y.'s been dropping. Everybody knows that with luck out, T.Y.'s never targeted as much, never performs as well. T.Y. did say he's going to dedicate the season to Andrew Luck. Well, if Brissett can't throw you the deep ball like Andrew Luck, then you're not going to get the stats to be able to dedicate a good thing to him. But maybe that changes. And T.Y. is a very talented receiver. He's always been a top 10 fantasy receiver. He's averaged 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns in his young career, so can't unride that bandwagon. Next, we're going to pick Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's kind of a wild card. Derrick Henry, ended last year, looked like the best running back in the NFL. He's also come in the season a little injury. But I think the Titans know if you're going to be good, they need to run the ball because Mariota has not looked good and Dion Lewis has not looked as good as they thought. And now they're going to get a quarterback that got cut by the Dolphins that says, hey, he might be as good as Mariota already. Well, if that's the case, then you got problems there. But Derrick Henry, if you went receiver heavy, it's kind of the area of guys that I'm not selecting just because I already get my 3 running backs from the other selections. But if you go get a couple of receivers and you get Derrick Henry or David Montgomery, hey, that's fine. It's still a solid flex play, still a starting running back. He's a rookie, and Tariq Cohen's going to get a lot of volume. That's why I'm dropping him here. But he's still a starter. He's still going to be on first down. For some possessions, Tariq Cohen will be on the field all possessions sometimes. So you get 15 carries a game with him. More if they're ahead, which they do have a good team. The other receiver we talked about earlier, Stephon Diggs, counterpart to Thielen. Stephon Diggs looked amazing the end of the year, like he's finally figuring it out. He's all over the place. One game he's super good, next game he doesn't show up. But at the end of last year, he showed up for a few games straight. So it's a good pick. A lot of times, this Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs, and Julian Edelman tier are available for me in the 3rd. I think all of them are pretty good. Edelman, probably more than most. Julian Edelman's been my number one receiver in a lot of mock drafts, and he's always been Tom Brady's favorite guy. He's a little bit older in age. I believe he's 32-ish maybe, but not as explosive as these other young guys, but he's going to catch a lot of underneath throws from Tom Brady. And it's a solid pick. After Edelman, kind of filtering in players not as blocky anymore. Sony Michel. Sony Michel was my running back last year in fantasy. I drafted him late. Ended up being my best player for a few weeks. Then he drops off, gets a little injury, doesn't show up. New England offense, you know how they are. They go with someone else for a game. James White maybe, and back to Sony. But Sony at the end of the year in the playoffs carried the Patriots. He was their best player for a while. Great player. Keenan Allen, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdown average the last couple seasons when he's healthy. Been an injury bug guy. Coming into the season, I believe, with a little ding up too. That's why he's dropped down here. But if you have a chance to grab him as your second receiver, maybe you're running back heavy and want to gamble that he's going to be healthy, then I think that's okay. He's going to be the low tier 1 receiver, maybe mid tier 1 receiver if he's healthy. He's not a top end receiver, but he's definitely Rivers' number 1 target. And they got rid of Tyrell Williams, and so he's going to get a lot of targets. Josh Jacobs, a lot of people have him slightly above David Montgomery. Was drafted in the first round, is their number 1 back. Raiders offense, I don't think they're going to be that good. David Montgomery's in a way better team, way better situation. But both rookies, both bell cows, both going to get the ball. That's where I have Josh Jacobs. Tevin Coleman here. I'm going to speed this up a little later in the draft. Not talk about as much of him. Tevin Coleman got his first shot last season. Didn't do very well as the number 1 guy. Still went to San Francisco as the number 1 guy. So he's in a crowded backfield, but is a starting running back. Anytime you got a starting running back, got to give him some credit and some love. Tevin Coleman as a flex is a solid play, but they do have a crowded running back room, but running backs in Shanahan's system do get the ball targeted to them a lot. So, hey, pick the starter. Just make sure you get his backup and later in the draft. Robert Woods. Some people think Robert Woods is a better pick than Cooks. I think Robert Woods is solid. Robert Woods just doesn't have his highest ceiling, but he catches a lot of passes underneath with the Rams offense, so solid pick. Tyler Lockett has been rising in ADP. That's because Seahawks receivers are dropping and they don't have any options. Has him at 45, which I believe is roughly where I'm drafting him now. I have had Tyler Lockett as my number 1 receiver in a few mock drafts with 3 running backs and a tight end. I probably would not reach for him early in the 4th. Probably wouldn't pick him in the end of the 4th. But getting him in the 5th as your number 2, or you have tight end already and 3 running backs, getting him as your number 1, he's going to have a good year. I doubt he'll have as many touchdowns as last year, but pretty positive his yards are going to go up. He will have over 1,000 yards. If he doesn't have over 1,000 yards, some rookie receiver broke out hard. And DK Metcalf looked like crap in preseason and is hurt. So, Tron Brown, they've been hyping about him. AJ Green, he is a top fantasy receiver when he's healthy, but we know he can't stay healthy. He's going to start the season out, but if you want to gamble on him here and get a couple Pettis-type receivers later on to take his place till he's back, I think it's worth the gamble. When he comes back, he will be just like he was last year, top-tier receiver when he's healthy. But can't stay healthy, so he's dropping the end of the 4th. Melvin Gordon, just the same as AJ Green. If Melvin Gordon decides to play and you can get him as your backup flex until then he starts and you just got a top-tier receiver, top-tier running back. It's a gamble. The reason I have Melvin Gordon lower than AJ Green on the out guys is Melvin Gordon looks like he might pull Le'Veon Bell more and more. But pick him in 5th, 6th round, you have his backup. It's worth it. If he plays, he's going to be a mid-first round selection. He was targeted 4th or 5th overall before he decided to hold out. Next pick here is a little pick I've been going back and forth with. I didn't have him on my boards at all, and then experts keep raving and raving and raving about him. So, hey, got to go with the experts. Miles Sanders, targeted in the draft to be the number 1. They trade for Howard. Howard, we know, has not been consistent in drafts or in seasons, so Sanders could be the starter sooner than later. All right, now we got these tier 2 receivers, the receivers that I'm targeting in the 4th round. We'll start off with Amari Cooper. Not my target, but high in ADP, so I'm going to have to put him first on the list. Cooper's up and down like he's been his whole career. One game he's 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. The next game he's 2 catches for 12 yards. Tyler Boyd had 1,000 yards. Tyler Boyd had 1,000 yards his first season as the man. He looked better when AJ Green was in, but he still looked good when he was the number 1. So Tyler Boyd's going to get volume at least start of the season. And then when AJ Green back and he gets the number 2 corner, his stats will even look better. Very good pick. Kenny Golladay is the man in Detroit, and Kenny Golladay looked good. Kenny Golladay had his first 1,000-yard season, and he was the number 1 guy in Detroit now. A lot of people like Matt Stafford. I like Matt Stafford, so number 1 target. At this point, it just becomes volume when you get to this part of the draft. How much they're going to get, where they sit in the system. Mike Williams, fairly good rookie year, 500 yards, a lot of touchdowns, I believe 8 or 10. Williams is gone. That means the other Williams. That means Mike's the number 2. If Keenan Allen gets out for the year, Mike Williams goes to number 1. There he goes, top of your receiver fantasy. Very talented receiver. Calvin Ridley, I was selecting him as my number 1 receiver in a lot of situations until he got hurt recently. I think he's past his injury bug, but we'll see how that goes. As of now, he dropped a little bit, but he is a very talented receiver, opposite of Julio Jones. He's similar to Mike Williams, had 800 yards and 10 touchdowns his first breakout season, and looks to build on that. Cooper Kupp is the Rams' number 1 when healthy, but he's going into his next season probable. So got to put him as the number 3 receiver of the Rams. But if he stays healthy, he was the number 1 receiver when healthy on the Rams. So keep that in mind. You want to gamble on the injury? Never was really hurt in his young career. James White, a very polarizing fantasy player. Always gets drafted low, always performs high. James White was the 7th ranked running back last year. He had 1,200 all-purpose yards and 12 touchdowns. That's right, 12. Tom Brady likes to dink it to him in the red zone, and he runs it in. Do not look for that to change. If you grab him as your flex, be very happy. I have him low just because Sony Michel, Burkhead's back. Always count this guy out, and he always makes you pay for it. So if you want James White as your flex, be very happy. Alshon Jeffrey hasn't been a number 1 receiver for years, but when he plays and he's healthy, he's been doing good for the Eagles. But I guess 2014 was his last 1,000-yard season. Take that for what it is. But he's the number 1 receiver on the Bears. He's going to get the volume if he stays healthy, so that's why he's there. Speaking of number 1 receivers, the guy I'm not really on, and he's hurt. Robbie Anderson, lot of people are loving him. I've had a few mock drafts. He was my number one receiver. I wasn't too unhappy with that pick, as I usually get a couple of these guys right here. And Robbie Anderson, he's number one receiver. I believe he had 1,000 yards last year. Maybe 800 yards, but he did sit out a few games. Dante Pettis has been dropping for some reason. I believe he's not getting targeted in the preseason, but Pettis, end of last year, was a monster. I'm a Huskies fan. He destroyed it in college, led the nation in punt returns, so he has the record. Very explosive player. Added a little bit of weight in the offseason. He was told by his team to do that, a little skinny. Don't know if that's a good thing because you like to keep your speed, like Deshaun, but we'll see how that goes. Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake has plummeted, injury. He's a pass-catching guru in Miami. Should be the starting back now. Have him down here behind James White. Not that high on him, but a lot of people love him as their flex play. Pass-catching running backs are usually good for flex plays. The guy I have after him, not because I don't like him, but ADP don't like him, so I got to kind of agree with the experts, is Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen had a very good season. Where you at, Tariq? There you are. He had 11th in fantasy points, just like James White. Had over 1,200 all-purpose yards, 8 touchdowns. Beast of the season. Did bring a running back to replace Howard, but I think it's going to be a similar situation. Maybe Montgomery gets 1,000 yards and Tariq Cohen gets 1,000 all-purpose yards. But having him as your flex is a great play as well. The next guy is kind of controversy. Some people don't think he can be a starter, but destroyed the Seahawks when I watched him play last year and should get the first crack at Melvin Gordon's replacement, Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, as the third down back last year, had 1,000 all-purpose yards and 6 touchdowns, just like the other third down backs. So getting him as your flex is great. Getting him behind Gordon on your team is great. But even playing both of them wouldn't be a bad idea. Eckler's going to get playing time, so Gordon, even if Gordon's back. Christian Kirk, reaching on this guy, kind of trying to buy into this air raid offense. Christian Kirk looked really good at the end of last year before he got hurt. Larry Fitzgerald, he's got a plummet, and I don't know if he can keep up on this air raid offense still. But Christian Kirk, fast, quick receiver, should work really well in the Arizona offense. Arizona offense is going to do so many plays, it's going to be insane. But like Chip Kelly's offense, it might not work too well. But Kirk's going to get volume, and Kirk's young and explosive. So Will Fuller, I've had him on my team in numerous seasons of fantasy. I go start, loving it, killing it, and then he gets hurt. So he is a low tier 1, tier 2 receiver when healthy, but doesn't stay healthy. Allen Robinson, it's been a while since this guy's been relevant, but Allen Robinson, not that long ago, his rookie season had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. He was a top tier receiver, and he still should be the number 1 for Chicago. Or number 2 for Chicago. So, number 1 for Chicago. So he should get volume, and we'll see if he gets back on it. Jarvis Landry, I've been hyping him up earlier. Been getting him in my mock drafts as my number 2 receiver and loving it. He had 1,000 yards last year in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield, and I think he will be open a lot with Odell in there. Here's my next tier quarterbacks. Took a while to get to him, but you get the 6th round and you can get any one of these 3 players, you are happy. Deshaun Watson, I have him higher on ADP right now at the second, but if I was to draft, I would probably pick Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' team is greatly improved. New coordinator, a lot of new good defensive players, good set of receivers, maybe a stud running back. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be back to that. Should we select him in the second round like we did a few years ago? And I think he'll be at that level this year. I am targeting him in every mock draft, late fifth, early sixth round. I expect him to have a blowout year. And Matt Ryan, same thing. If I can't get Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan's available in the late sixth, early seventh, Matt Ryan is my guy. He almost had a similar to MVP year. His MVP year, he had 5,035 touchdowns, and he had that last year. He had a sneaky good year. And his same team, Sanu, Ridley, Julio, got his running back healthy. Matt Ryan is top 4 quarterback guaranteed. After this, it's kind of a, crapshoot. Took a while on my rankings on my back end, and my last 30-ish players selected. Latavius Murray is taking the role of Mark Ingram. Yes, correct. Latavius Murray is taking the role of Mark Ingram. So he will be goal line touching. He will be spelling Kamara. He's going to get similar stats as Mark Ingram because he had him in Oakland. So Latavius Murray, I think he had 600 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. I expect the same. That's what Ingram had. This next guy is very interesting. Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson has had 1,000 all-purpose yards in 3 of his first 4 seasons. I looked at his stats and I did not believe that, but I know he can be explosive out of the pass game. But so you're talking about a Tariq Cohen type player, a James White type player, but he is now the guy in Houston. So if you can get him as your flex, you could win the season because of him. I'm very tempted to get him if I go for a receiver early on, which I usually don't. Rashad Penny. It's funny, I'm a Seahawks fan and I'm down on him. Will be the starter if Carson gets hurt. There's that. Otherwise, he's not very decisive in the backfield. He looks fast. He can make some cuts, but he just doesn't hit the holes right away. He wants to be Barry Sanders. He wants to be like his idol, Reggie Bush. He just doesn't go for it. Is he explosive? Yes. Can he get a lot of yards if he's healthy and the starting running back? Yes. As a flex play behind Carson, no. Not going to be. He is only there if Carson goes down, which a lot of people think can. So if you pick Carson early, get him in the 7th round, sure, safe. But playing him in a flex if Carson's healthy, bad move. Carson goes down, Seahawks have to run the ball. They do have Procise too, who I actually think could be better than him if Procise is healthy. But he's just this is kind of the area where you're just getting that running back backup for guys that possibly can get hurt. Speaking of running back backups, Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard will go in the season starting running back, I believe, but all experts, everyone I hear says Miles Sanders will be replacing him very soon. And Jordan Howard might not even start out being a stud. He might just be getting 10 carries a game. We don't know with that Eagles team. But Jordan Howard is a hit or miss for the last couple fantasy seasons. Chris Goodwin, I wouldn't select him. His ADP is 4th round. This is the 7th round. He had a great season last year, 800 yards, 7 touchdowns, and Arians said he is going to get him involved all the time. Could it just be hype? Yeah. Could it be more than hype? Yes. Jarvis Landry type player? I agree. 1,000 yards is very possible. This is a very polarizing pick for me. if I got him as my second receiver, it could win my season for me, or it just could turn out to be 600 yards, 800 yards, no touchdowns. That's the risk you're going to have to take. But if you're getting 3 running backs and you're getting him as your second receiver, you should be happy with that. I do not like Panthers. I'm not touching any of their players if possible besides McCaffrey. DJ Moore, number 1 receiver. Shoulder issues for Cam, new throwing motion for Cam. We haven't really seen Cam. Cam got hurt. But number 1 receiver, you can't pass on number 1 receivers. Eventually you have to draft them because they are number 1 receivers. Now we got a tight end round. I see a lot of tight ends in the ADP left over. Evan Ingram, in my opinion, is the 4th best tight end. He is the best offensive weapon on the Giants behind Saquon Barkley. He will probably get targeted a lot if the Giants quarterbacks, plural, are smart. He's looked explosive his rookie season. He had 700 yards, 6 touchdowns. I think he missed a couple games, but I believe he will have a 1,000-yard season. Quote me on that. O.J. Howard, ADP is higher than Ingram. I like him. Good player. He's had back-to-back 500-yard, 5-touchdown seasons, but everyone thinks they're going to throw the ball more. Expect big things from him. Hunter Henry, similar stats as O.J. Howard, but the Chargers are missing a few of their pieces, so should get more volume. And this kind of just, you can hear the stats. It tells you about top-tier tight ends. These guys had 500 yards. The other guys, over 1,000 yards. You're double the stats. It's just if you want to waste a pick on a high-tier number 1 receiver or a number flex position or a 2 or 3 running back, that's where you're debating. But you're seeing 500-600 yards. That's a few fantasy points a week. Could make a big difference. And then the last one, which has been plummeting for whatever reason in ADP, maybe because of the inconsistency, is Eric Ebron. Luck's gone. Ebron's been off and on his entire career. Last year, he was a touchdown machine, 14. He will not duplicate that, but still, he's been a 500, 600, 700 guy every season. 500, 600 yard guy every season, so same category. I would say Ebron has the most upside of those, second most behind Ingram. After these guys, I go quarterback. You got to grab your quarterback. You don't want to play the game of getting a crap quarterback into the draft. I think that's a very bad decision. Obviously, waiting to get your roster filled out, like without your kicker, defense, you could go tight end after quarterback, but you need to get a top quarterback. Carson Wentz, to me, if healthy, MVP type guy. If I got Carson Wentz, however, I would get a backup for him later in the draft if he's hurt. But I believe he's the 4th best quarterback if healthy. Baker Mayfield, I'm putting him 5th, though I don't think he's 5th. He has tons of talent. Preseason, though, hasn't looked good. Kind of just going with the experts here, picking him higher. I'm not touching him. I think he could be really good with the talent he has. He looked pretty good at the end of last year. But he's up in the other category of Matt Ryan area where he's going to be drafted. You're going to have to probably reach for Baker Mayfield if you want him. I'm putting Russell Wilson here. I've had him in my fantasy team a couple times because I'm a Seahawks fan. Not because I wanted to draft him, but just because where he fell, and I debated on drafting him. I mean, I debated between him and Trubisky last year. That shows you how much I love fantasy-wise my quarterback. Not because I don't think Russell's a stud, it's because I don't throw the ball. And you're debating on him to be very efficient and run for the ball, run for some scores, run the ball a little bit, 500, 600 yards. Last year, his rushing was down. Fantasy-wise, he's still relevant because he threw a lot of touchdowns, but can he keep that efficiency level on? The older you get, the less you would think that is, but I mean, it's hard to pass on a guy that's always top fantasy, but we'll see. Probably not going to draft him, but he's been available for me to draft him. And next guy I think is garbage. but in a good team and a good offense with good players, and sometimes bad players do well in good situations. Dumbest quarterback ever to play, but it's in a very fantasy relevant team. Not even gonna say his name. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was not on my radar to draft, period. ADP has been shooting up on him. I can totally see a Michael Vick scenario. Rushes for 1,000 yards. Don't see him thrown for many yards. Him and Jackson are similar to me. They're going to have a tough time throwing, but they're going to run the ball. So Kyler Murray, I think, is going to get you 1,000 yards rushing, at least 800 yards rushing. Great for fantasy. Passing, you're just going to take the inefficiency and hope he throws for 25 touchdowns, 3,000 yards. But if he does that and gets 800 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns, he's a top fantasy quarterback. You got to take running quarterbacks. Fantasy-wise, it's more viable. 10 rushing yards is better than 30. It's the same as 30 passing yards. So, after that, quarterbacks just take at the end if you don't get these ones. Josh Gordon's polarizing. His ADP's been climbing. Josh Gordon can play. Josh Gordon's healthy. When Gronk was out last year and Josh Gordon was in there, Josh Gordon played amazing. Touchdown guy. He's big, strong receiver. He's going to get you touchdowns. If he is not dumb and stays healthy, he will be fantasy relevant. Could be a tier 1 receiver. Also could be a tier 4 receiver. So if you want to make that gamble, very good gamble. High upside. Sterling Shepard, number 1 receiver. Like we said earlier about those, you got to pick them eventually. Get them on your team. They're going to be targeted more than anyone on the team. Teams have to throw the ball. That's the NFL. Another polarizing guy for me, I take him a lot higher than ADP, is Emmanuel Sanders. Sanders last year had almost 900 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was getting pretty old, not as explosive as he was, a little more injury prone, but is the number 1 receiver on his team and has shown in the past to be very explosive. Back into the player selection, Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins looks like a super stud. Gets signed by the Chiefs for a ton of money. People think after this year he's going to be cut because he's not performing. He had 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in 9 games last year, so you're thinking 800 yards, 900 yards. He was higher on boards before Hill came back, but now that Hill's back, number 2 in the Chiefs, still a good play. If you want to get him as your number 2 and you have a decent number 1 that you can count on, hey, high upside. He could win you weeks from big touchdown scores. This next play for me, obviously I had Miller high on my draft board, but he's done for the year. Darius Geis. I would not touch Old Man Peterson. I would not touch McCoy, just because, yeah, you could get him to start the season. Wait, you got to waste a player for a guy that's going to get replaced. Darius Geis is the best option in Redskins. Goes in the season hurt again. Looked explosive in the preseason when he played a little bit. I think he's worth a gamble late in the draft if you went receiver heavy. I'm throwing him as my last running back just to fill out this draft board. I don't know. He could bust and be a good selection, but he also could not play much. All right, we got to round out our tight ends. These are the guys that you pick at the end of the draft if you didn't get a tight end early. Vance McDonald had a good season, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, his first full season in Pittsburgh. Expect more from that. I love selecting him if I don't go early on in tight ends, because I think with Brown leaving, there's big holes for people to go to, and why not the tight end? David Njoku, I've been selecting him a lot lately. I wait to the end and get him. Very happy with him. He had a solid season, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, just like those guys up there. Only going to get better since Odell's there. Odell's going to shift coverage. Guys are going to be open. Jared Cook, going to a team quarterback. Drew Brees has always thrown a lot to quarterbacks, and Jared Cook's one of the more talented ones he's had since Jimmy Graham. I expect him to have a good season. Trey Burton. First year with the Bears, had 600 yards and 6 touchdowns. Sound familiar? Same numbers. Questionable going into the season. He's the last quarterback that I select. If all these guys are gone, I just wait to the end and select Trey Burton, and he's always been there for me. I expect him to be good in Chicago again and have another 600-yard, 6 touchdown season. Last few quarterbacks. Almost done. Ben Roethlisberger. Don't like that Big Ben's losing players like Brown, but still looked good last year. Was third-rated quarterback. Was questioning a year or two ago if he wanted to play still, but he's keeping going. Phillip Rivers had a solid season. He was the 11th rated quarterback. I truly believe, though, with Eckler playing, pass catching, Mike Williams going to the number 2 receiver, I think he's going to have a solid year. And throwing Drew Brees in here. Tempted to do Jackson instead of Drew Brees, and actually I will. It's just kind of a spur-of-the-moment selection. I had Drew Brees selected. Lamar Jackson. He is the poor man's Kyler Murray. You can get him at the end of your draft. He is going to run a lot and do a lot of good things for his team. As you can see, we're at the start of the round because I got to pick all the defenses and all the kickers. Let's just select defense. Chicago Bears, clearly the number 1 defense. Stud players across every position. Best pass rusher in the NFL. Sacks get you fantasy points. Turnover machine last year. Don't expect them to be that good, but still the best defense. I've tried drafting them in the 6th or 7th round. My team still looked good. So if you want to reach for the Bears, reach for the Bears. But if they're there when you want a defense, they're the best defense. I'm not touching the Rams. I do not know the hype on the Rams. The Rams defense has Aaron Donald. That is it. My opinion. Number 2 to me is the Jaguars. Interception party in the backfield. They have the best secondary by far. Interceptions are good for fantasy points. Just on the DBs alone makes them my second selection. Third selection is the Chargers. The Chargers defense is an all-around good defense. They have great secondary, 2 stud pass rushers. In most situations for defenses, you'll notice I get defenses that have 2 good pass rushers. You have 2 good pass rushers that get you 10 to 12 sacks each. That's a sack a game. That's extra fantasy points. Sacks are the easiest way to get fantasy points as a defense. Even though I don't like the Rams because of Aaron Donald, I think I said I wasn't going to take them, but they're just lower than ADPs for them. Haven't been taking them, though, because people reach for the Rams defense. But Aaron Donald, that's why you take the Rams. Unstoppable force, best defensive player. Similar to Chicago, they just don't have the pieces Chicago has. And they throw the ball around more, which makes the defense be on the field more, which allows more points to be scored. Baltimore Ravens always have a good defense because they have a good coach that runs a good defense. And they lost a few players, but they also have some new young replacements. So the Ravens is a good selection. The Browns looked really good last year. They have 2 stud defensive ends, one of the best left ends in the game, Garrett. Get you those pass rushers. They have good DBs. Cleveland Browns, I'm targeting them a lot. They have a really solid defense. To the Browns, the Vikings. The Vikings always, they have good pass rushers that have been hurt, but when they're healthy, they're good. Same thing. Good safeties, good DBs, good all-around defense. Just like the Ravens, they just have a good defense. Broncos and Cowboys are my next 2 picks. Both of them, once again, have 2 stud defensive ends. And get you some sacks. Von Millers, Lawrence. Both have good pass rushers. Pass rush leads to sacks. low scoring games lead to low points. Cowboys I can get late in the draft. A lot of mock drafts. They're one of my last selections in the draft. And I'm very, very, very happy with them. When I see some of these defenses drop and I have the Broncos and Cowboys left, I snag them on my next pick. Texans still have 2 stud ends. If Clowney stays, doesn't look like he's getting traded right now. And then he also has to report. But they have good pass rushers, if healthy and if playing. Kind of iffy on them right now. Haven't selected them, but I see the talent. Colts defense for some reason looked amazing end of last year, and now without Andrew Luck, I think they have to run the ball, so they're going to have to actually depend on their defense, which you can never say about the Colts, but their defense looked really good last year. And then as my 12th pick, I'm kind of picking a wild one. Packers, a lot of good talent. They got a lot of good free agents. Are they going to gel together? We'll see. I feel like the Packers are going to be way more of an efficient team. Number 1 kicker, it's not even close. The leg. Greg Zuerlein, I reach for in a lot of my drafts. When there's a position where I see like Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, a bunch of receivers, and I already got my position set, or I can get him on the turn, I just like to get Greg Zuerlein. A lot of people that pay attention to leagues, what the heck? A lot of people that pay attention to fantasy notice things, and the first thing you notice is you win leagues on your kicker. You win games all the time on your kicker, and having the best kicker in the league will win you drafts, guaranteed. Win you leagues, guaranteed. I don't know how many times I win by a field goal in my league. All the time. In each game, a field goal. Kicker comes down to the kicker. Come down to the kicker. Kicker kicks 5 field goals. That's 15 points. And I don't trust Jared Goff for 1. And Zuerlein is the best kicker too. So I'm reaching for Zuerlein. After Zuerlein, yes, Justin Tucker is the second best kicker, but I think there's quite a bit of drop off between the two. So I haven't even got to select Justin Tucker. Kind of how it goes for me is if I get Greg Zuerlein earlier, I'm super happy. After that, it's just selecting kickers on teams that score. So the Chiefs score a lot. You get Lutz. And Lutz is on what? He's on another scoring team. He's in the Saints. So yeah, they're good. They're good kickers, but they're on teams that score. And when you get a kicker, you want to score. You want to be around the end zone. I mean, yeah, you could use the other route and pick kickers because you don't think teams can score touchdowns, which I've tried before and it doesn't turn out. So you get the New England, you get the Saints, you get the Chiefs because they're in good teams. They're going to be around the red zone a lot, and they're going to get a lot of opportunities, even just to kick extra points, which is still a point. Houston's going to have an explosive offense. Houston's going to be around the red zone. Houston's going to score. We're rounding this out. Robbie Gould. A lot of people like Robbie Gould's actually a really good kicker, but a lot of people like San Francisco's offense now that ex-Patriots quarterback's back. Can't even think of his name. I did have Vinatieri here. Don't know if I would select Vinatieri now that Luck's gone. I can't think of another one right now. I'll just kind of stay with this because Colts still have a good team. Brissett's still a good quarterback, so Vinatieri is a solid, accurate kicker. But the reason he was there is because the Colts were potentially Super Bowl bound, and that's over. Dallas has a solid team. Dallas had some issues getting in the end zone last year. Still a playoff team. Still a solid team. He's a good kicker. I got a couple more. I'm going to go with the Chargers. Bagley.
Chargers playoff team. If you notice, most kickers I'm picking are in playoff teams because playoff teams are good. Playoff teams score. Next one I'm reaching on. He was a Pro Bowl last year kicker. He was cut by the Seahawks, and kind of the reason I'm selecting him is because I don't like to pick my team